Hi there, and welcome to another episode of Ancestral Recalls Cube Series. I'm your host, Eli Kaplan, and like John Cena and the guy in the middle bush in that great Python sketch, I cannot be seen. Today's episode is going to look at the black cards of the cube. As in the case of most black cube cards, if you want to kill creatures, this is the color you want to be in. If you want to hit their hand, well, black's got the discard too. Of all the colors in my cube, black is the most balanced in terms of card types, with an average amount of instants, sorceries, enchantments, and creatures in comparison to all the other colors, right in the middle. It has a ton of removal. But while the creatures have the typical distribution of casting costs for the cube, mostly 3 and 4s, and then a good number of 2s and 5s, and then a smaller number of 6+s, these creatures don't hit very hard. Only the blue creatures are smaller. But there are a ton of great abilities, though. Let's not wait. Let's get right into things. First up, Augur of Skulls. Well, if you want to slow down the board and make your opponents slow roll their hands because you want to sacrifice this guy to make him discard 2, there's so many great uses for this card. It's an amazing 2-drop. 6-6 card I drafted a ton of in Future Sight. Black Knight, the classic. He always triumphs. Too bad he doesn't have regeneration. Mesmeric Fiend. Here's a discard spell for a short time. It's very similar to Tide Hollow Sculler, just keeping your opponent's best card out of the game for as long as he's around. Nezumi Grave Robber. Wow, if he manages to go flip in the late game, it's really hard to lose with this guy. You're going to be investing a lot of mana in many cases, but it's pretty awesome. Nezumi Shortfang. So this guy flips over into Stab Whisker the Odious, and it turns into a rack plus 3/3, before it's flipped, 2 mana for a disrupting scepter. Disrobing scepter? Disrupting scepter. Yeah. This is really, really efficient. I can't believe they printed this. Nightscape Familiar. We've got a skeleton that regenerates for a bit, and it happens to accelerate some ally colors. Pretty solid. Order of the Ebon Hands. We are going to see some copies of this when we get to the white cards. We've got the pro whites. I wanted to have 1 or 2 fallen cards in here. This is one of them. Wrathy Trapper. This is a black tapper. You don't see many of those, but it makes sense. Skin Thinner. There are a few morphs in this cube. Skin Thinner is one of them. It's not super powerful, but because the banishing effect costs 5, but still, it's a nice removal spell. It tends to draw heats because opponents don't know what's under there. Skulking Ghost. 2/1 flying. Compared to Vaporkim, which is in Theros, this is not nearly as good, but it's flavorful. I like the art on it, and there wasn't a lot of Mirage in the cube. Stromgald Crusader, another Pump Knight. This one is from Cold Snap, and it gets flying. Undertaker. Not going to make a WWE joke. Seriously. I can't believe this got reprinted in Time Spiral because Wizards likes to try to avoid repeatable game state play. But Undertaker, it's pretty awesome. Vampire Hexmage. Not as good in this cube as many others because there's only 2 planeswalkers. But, it's still efficient. Withered Wretch. This takes care of problematic cards in the graveyard, and it's a bear. Armor Thrall. I put this in the cube because I wanted people to kind of freak out over +1/+2 counters. It is an oddity. That is why it's here. Cabal Torturer. I talked about this in the Torment video. pretty badass Tim. It's Black Tim. Dothy Jackal. We've got a couple shadow cards in this cube, and they're all black. The ability to destroy a blocker is weird. I don't understand how it works in terms of flavor, but yeah, this is an efficient shadow guy. Dothy Marauder, a little more efficient than that Jackal, because it hits for 3 and basically unblockable. So good. Fleshbag Marauder. This really feels black. Everybody's sacking a creature. There are a bunch of matchups where this is going to stink. I think it's bad against red in particular, which has lots of little guys. It's not too fantastic in white, but yeah, this is decent. Lost Soul. People are looking at that. Why Lost Soul? I want to have a Legends card in here. I mean, I do have a bunch of Legends cards, but most of the creatures in Legends are not too exciting. So hey, just a 2/1 Swamp Walk. Not anything special, but people look at it and say, ooh, that's got pretty art. Nantuko Husk. There's lots of variants of this card. I just felt like putting in the Nantuko. Necrogen Scudder. 3/3 flyer, and it hits you. This is a lot better than Serpent Warrior, that's for sure. I happen to really like this guy when I was drafting Scar's draft. Black without Infect actually was a little bit viable if you got a bunch of these. Netzling Imp. This one's a little beat up, but it is unloaded. The templating is kind of weird to read, but that's part of the fun of this card for modern players. This is what? Isn't this a blue ability? Well, it was originally in black. Nirkana Cutthroat. Here's our black level up card. Once it gets all the way to the top, it is an Abyss. I just think this is an awesome card. Phyrexian Rager. Elegant, the perfect gray ogre. Just super simple, straightforward, clean, great limited card. Royal Assassin. Remember that Netling Imp? This is his buddy. Stinkweed Imp doesn't kill as many guys as Royal Assassin, but he's almost sure to take something better. Vampire Nighthawk. A little better than Stinkweed Imp, especially since it's got lifelink. But, you know, it's okay to have cards that are better than others. Speaking of cards that are better than others, Wall of Bone, not as good as others. Like 1/4 Regenerator on the grounds, kind of quirky, but it regenerates, so it holds us up pretty well. Zombie Cutthroat, another morph with a amusing cost. I mean, if you're going to play him face up, it's a waste of time. This is admittedly a bit of a trap, but if you just want to play morphs out to bait out removal spells, he's okay. Bloodline Keeper. This is a bomb, making more dudes, and then flipping it so that he's a 5/5, and the vampires are +2/+2, 4/4s? I would have to flip it over to check, and I'm lazy. But yeah, Bloodline Keeper, so broken. I played it a couple times in the Innistrad Limited. Very few bombier cards. Daralor. So this is what you used to have to pay to get a 4/4 for 4 in the old days. That is a pretty steep cost. If you're splashing black, it's not that big a deal, but most cube decks with the build I have are not going to be splashing black. Faceless Butcher, another nice removal spell. It's temporary. I have this in here instead of Oubliette, but yeah, it's a perfectly fine removal spell. And there's only one in them, not 3 of them, so you can't get into that stupid infinite loop. That happened to me once. Gravedigger. Wasn't there a Rich Rubin produced group doing hip hop from the grave? Keening Banshee. It's a little expensive, but 4 mana, 2/2 flyers with a bit of an upside. Pretty cool. Morphines. This is in instead of Bog Wraith because I wanted to have an Ice Age card. Necrotol. Yep. First strike, tear something. This is efficiency incarnate. Norits. Yeah. I put this in here because some people might look at that first line of text, untapping a target blue creature. Really? Yeah, sure, why not? It also has the Netling ability. The art is also pretty awesome, and there's a certain guy in R&D who really likes this card. Phyrexian Defiler. This is from Legacy. There was a vertical cycle of creatures which you could tap and sacrifice to give someone the sickness. This is flavorful. Not super efficient, but definitely flavorful. When you were able to put damage on the stack and then sacrifice it, this was really powerful, but nowadays it's just okay. Scavenger Drake. Here's our Cabal Ghoul with an upgrade. He gets put into first class. He gets to fly. Flying 1/1 that can get really big in a hurry. This is pretty awesome. It was tragically underplayed in Shards block. Sengir Autocrats. If you want a partner for Scavenger Drake or lots of other things that let you sack stuff, this dude comes out. He is the 1%. Ugh. Sengir Autocrats. Powerful card in many different ways, even though for many eyes it looks unimpressive. But if you play it, I think you'll be impressed. Undead Warchief. Here's a zombie card. There's a modest zombie theme in this cube, so yeah, this gets to spit out some pretty major pumps, and it's +2/+1, which is a little unusual for Lords. In our 5-drop, we've got a real heavy hitter, Drana, Calastria Bloodchief. She sucks the blood out of some innocent and gets even bigger for it. She hits hard. Viscera Dragger. We've got cycling and unearth. Interesting mix of mechanics here. I think it's a perfectly reasonable Hill Giant. It's better than Hill Giant, obviously. Either of the Dead. Wait, we're back to 5-drops. Viscera Dragger was in the wrong spot. Yeah, either will, in multiplayer games, fix the state of the board. If someone's trying to do reanimation or flash... Oh, no, he doesn't take care of flashback spells. Malakir Bloodwitch. Here's another cool vampire. Not a ton of vampires in this cube, but if you can get this guy out and Bloodline Keeper, ooh, she can hit really, really hard. Okiba Gang Shinobi. Ninjutsu is one of the most fun mechanics in Limited ever. Whenever I play a ninjutsu guy, I love to yell, Ninpo! Which is Japanese for, well, it's just a stupid line from Super Sentai, but yeah, the bounce thing, you can occasionally get some use out of returning an attacker to your hand, but discarding for 2, hitting for 3, that is brutal. Sengir Vampire, the one, the only, the classic. Shriekmaw. Killing dudes, you can do it for cheap, or you can pay full retail and get a 3/2 evasion guy afterwards. That's a steal. Throat Slither, another ninja. This one will assassinate guys when he gets through. Only gets through once, generally speaking, but once sometimes is all you need. Ascendant Evankar. Here's Crobax in his nastiest form. Still, though, if you look at him, he's only a 3/3. That's not too exciting. Dakmor Lancer. This guy originally was in Portal, and he is a very expensive Necrotol for 3/3, but sometimes you'll pay 6 mana for a removal spell with a 3/3 body. Extractor Demon. This is a card that will fill up graveyards. I think it's pretty awesome. Helldozer. Destroying land, occasionally destroying Karus, and Amazing art and name. I mean, I can't not put this guy in a cube. He's pretty demanding with that triple black, though. 7 mana, Butcher of Malakir. So we've got Grave Pact on a stick. 5/4 flying is pretty awesome too, but making people sacrifice tons of creatures, this is a heavy hitter. At 7, we've got Chancellor of the Dross. This vampire is 6/6 flying lifelink, and occasionally at the beginning of games you get a little drain. That's pretty cool. This is the only Chancellor in the cube. Puskami. Not a ton of spirits, but occasionally that Soul Shift is relevant. This is a pretty bad card because you have to sack it to get your tear off, but sometimes that's going to be the price you pay. Pestilence Demon. 7/6 flyer with a cool ability attached. I feel this is a worthy 8-drop. And Tombstalker. Yeah, okay, he's probably not a real 8-drop. Not sure where to put him, but I put him here. So, yeah, very simple. 5/5, flying demon. Eats your things to get out cheap. Into our spells, we've got Booster Tutor, which is always an enjoyable card. People look at this and smile. My cube, it's not the most powerful thing ever, but it's certainly got enough heft. Dark Blast. If you want to kill little guys, yeah, this'll do stuff. Duress. Absolutely necessary. Classic removal spell for various things. Executioner's Capsule. A nice seal. Unfortunately, it does have a mana cost involved, so that's not quite as cool as Seal of Doom, but we'll take it. Shrouded Lore. Black gets a little bit of a twist on reanimation here. You get to get something out of your graveyard. What that something is may vary. Unholy Strength. This is unlimited with the correct art. Animate Dead. I feel bad putting this version into the cube instead of the foil one from Graveborn because this one has lousy text, but, you know, it's an iconic card. Chainer's Edict, cool removal spell. You get to do it twice, most games, I'd say. Diabolic Edict, not as good as Chainer's Edict, but it's instant speed. Doomblade. Come on, you guys know why that's here. Grim Harvest. Repeatable Raise Dead. Now, you're going to have to keep mana open if you want to recover it. But, yeah, this is a pretty nice little card advantage engine. Hymn to Torak. What else can I say? We've got the Susan Van Camp 3-Dog Night Arts. I understand that Wizards kind of yelled at her for being a little too generic after a while. But, you know, I find this to be a little bit tastily ironic. Kiku's Shadow. A little bit of an unusual removal spell. Not as good as Dark Banishing, but it hits black creatures. Terror? Straightforward. Twisted Abomination. Oops, this is out of place. Yeah, so we've got 5/3 Regenerator, or it can Swamp Cycle. In this cube, you usually don't want to Swamp Cycle it, though, but sometimes you gotta do what you have to. Beseech the Queen. A very fascinating tutor card. Bog Down. We've got a little bit more flexibility than Mind Rot in that you can really make them lose all 3 cards in their hands, but you have to pay a serious price for it. Dark Banishing, straightforward. Dothi Embrace. Giving a creature Shadow when you're on the offense is actually a really interesting thing. A lot of people miss the dynamic that if you got 3 attackers and they've got 1 blocker who will eat your best guy, giving their blocker Shadow lets all your guys through without fear of harassment. Dirge of Dread. Cycling, and it can give something fear. Not super powerful, but sometimes this will win. Dismember. Classic card we've got Phyrexian mana. Hirobi's Whisper. Not a lot to splice it to, but it is certainly possible. I think that I have to figure out some way of announcing that splice could be attached to any spirits. I'm thinking about that. Because I feel like splicing things onto creatures is actually a pretty cool concept. It's not that big of a deal in terms of templating. Ickerslick. We've got an interesting mix of abilities here with Cycling and Madness. Infest. There's a good number of creatures that this will kill. Unfortunately, a lot of the black creatures in this cube will also die to Infest, but that feels black to me. Rend Flesh. Pretty much destroy target creature. No limits. Very few limits. Soul Kiss. Now here's a really interesting enchantment from the old school. So this is Ice Age. It doesn't do anything to the creature without paying mana, but you can pay a black and pay a life to give a creature +2/+2. Slap this on a double striker, and wow, that's some serious pain. Slap this onto most creatures, and things can happen. This really isn't that strong, but it has potential. Strangling Soot, we've got Off-Color Flashback. Sudden Death, another split-second card, it's uncounterable. Agonizing Demise, works very well in red-black, and the kicker is pretty awesome. Befoul, yet another removal spell, although this will also blow up lands. Chill to the Bone, there are no snow creatures in this cube, so this says destroy target creature. It costs 4, but it's easier to cast in terms of color than Murder. Diabolic Tutor, this is the cost of the generic tutor effect in this cube. Diabolic Servitude. Now here's a really interesting reanimating card, because first of all you're only reanimating your own stuff, but when that creature dies, you exile the creature and return this back to your hand. This is a lot better than Zombify. Evankar's Justice. If you want to play against it, I mean, this is a really solid sideboard card against decks with lots of little guys, and it also damages players, which is neat. Hideous Laughter. Here's a card which, yeah, this splice is pathetic. This is a bit of a trap. But yeah, if you draft this in Hirobi's Whisper, you can certainly dream. Honden of Night's Reach. A powerful, repeatable discard outlet. Or discard mechanic. Hitting them every turn for a card. That's pretty powerful. There's a couple Hondens in the cube. I think there's no white and there's no green, but we've got the bolus colors have them. Nightmare Void. Here's a repeatable discard spell that you get to take their best card. You can even hit lands with it, and you can do it over and over again thanks to Dredge. It's an interesting card. Pestilence. Everybody knows Pestilence. Snuff Out. Free killing creature spell. You do have to pay 4 life for it, though. Ad Nauseam. Want to draw stuff? You can do it. This is a very interesting draw spell variant for black. Depending on how your curve is, you may want to use this a couple times. It's dangerous, though. But hey, black's about living dangerously. Kumbaj Witches. What is this doing back here? We've got another card from Arabians. Yeah, so Kumbaj Witches, ping something, and your opponent gets to ping something. It's a fun little card. I happen to like Kaja Foglio's art, so that's in there. Contagion. Another free spell, killing sometimes 2 creatures, or at least making them pretty lousy. This cat, one of the creepiest looking cats in Magic. If I ever do a top 10 cats list, this is going to be on it, even though it's not an actual cat. Incremental Blights. Screw you, you, and you. Yeah, it's possible to be forced to make one of your creatures a little smaller, but I'm happy to play this. Really powerful card from Shadowmoor. Ribbons of Night. Here's a card for black-blue, if you're lucky. If you're not lucky, still, 4 damage a creature and gaining 4 life is still a fine spell on its own. You don't have to draw a card. But if you can, this is sweet. Corrupt. This goes to the Dome. It's a reason for people to play mono black. Death Rattle. Another removal spell with Delve. So your graveyard is a resource in black. It's a minor theme. There's not a lot of ways to load up, but it can happen. Enslave. Now this is a removal spell. Take their best creature and, oh, you get it? And they lose 1 life on your upkeep. Well, take a damage. Oh man. This is a really unfair removal card. It's so violating. And it's so black. Morbid Hunger. Flashback. Killing a mid-sized creature. Yeah, this is basically a 2-for-1. Although the flashback is so expensive. Murderous Spoils. There's a couple equipment cards in this cube, and this is an answer to equipment. Baneful Omen. This is a interesting way to win that doesn't involve the combat step. And lastly, Grave Betrayal. This feels so black. When your opponent's army dies, they come back bigger on your side. Man, this is made... I mean, this is just a classic fantasy fictional situation brought to life in Magic. I'm thinking it was Chronicles of Prydain is where I first read this, which was a great young adult fantasy series. Okay, so that's the black cards for my cube. I've walked through and talked through all these cards and explained why they're in here, and I hope you get some inspiration for your cubes or EDH. Thanks for watching. This is Eli Kaplan for Ancestral Recall signing off. Good games and good luck.